Hello family, this is African Esquire. I'm here with a new video. So what we're going to talk about today is an article that I seen on Face to Face Africa, and shout out to them if you don't look at their news. They have a lot of good news that they always post about things going on in diaspora, so I encourage you to look at them. So this was an article I actually seen on Facebook first, and then I followed the link to Face Africa, and it was very interesting and the kind of common sense type of article to me, because I know that white supremacy, the hatred that's fueled, it's an international issue. It's not just something in the United States. But to some people, this might be surprising that people are dealing with this not just in the United States, but all over the world. So the title of the article is, "Even in Canada, Black Lives Do Not Matter." And just to give you like a premise of the article, basically the same, things we're dealing with police brutality, with disproportionate murders from the police, with disproportionate incidents of being brutalized by the police. Same thing happens in Canada. Why is that important? Well, there's been a really weird narrative that has been built up that America is really where racism exists. America is the hotbed of racism, that Europe has progressed far from racism, that Canada has been progressed from racism. After all, if you remember, a lot of the slaves inside of the United States, whenever they would run and be free, they would go to Canada. So the mindset is that, well, this is where things are more progressive. Europe's where things are more progressive. And so because of that, we allow these narratives, people to get away with these narratives that it's really just the United States that has this racism and that it's not going on anywhere else. But listen to me, it's going on everywhere. Now, there's blatant racism, and then there's hidden racism, or there's systematic racism. But regardless, it's going on anywhere, everywhere. Because the fact is, as long as African people are on the bottom, as long as they are viewed as inferior, as long as they are not treated with dignity, with their land, with their resources, given what they're actually owed, given their human rights, that affects us directly. I don't care if you go to Germany. I don't care if you go to China. China, I hear, is actually kind of bad for a lot of us, but I don't care where you go. As long as the African in their own continent is subjected to harsh, brutal conditions, and the West continues to exploit them, there's never going to be a day where us who are of the diaspora get to be exempt from the hatred that they receive, that we get to be treated differently than them, because at the end of the day, whether or not you know it or want to acknowledge it, you are them. You are their children. You are their descendants. You come from that continent. So you're never going to be able to dissociate yourself from being Black, from being African. So I'm going to read through just parts of this article, and I thought it was very interesting. It says, Black people in Canada's largest city, Toronto, and I hear all types of great things about Toronto, they are 20 times more likely to be shot by police officers compared to white people. A collective impact interim report on an inquiry into racial profiling and racial discrimination of Black persons by the Toronto Police Service noted that Black people, who make up 8.8% of the city's population, made up 25% of the Special Investigations Unit investigation between 2013 and 2017, meaning that they were 3.1 times more likely than a white person to be involved in such an investigation. They also made up 28% of cases where police used force, 36% of police shootings, 61.5% of police use of force cases that resulted in civilian death, and 70% of police shootings that resulted in civilian death. So why is this important for us to digest, and not just digest, but to actually come to terms with? I think we have to get out of this escape the racism mindset as a people all over the world. And, you see it inside of certain Black communities. It's like, okay, well, this is bad, but I just got to get to the suburbs. I just got to get to this city. I just got to get to that city. And you'll see it a lot in Africa. This is horrible. The conditions are horrible. We just got to get to Europe. But the thing that, especially my continental African brothers and sisters, I want you to think about and to question is, even if you go there, even if you get to Europe, if you get to Canada, if you get to the United States, the fact is that you're still living in someone else's land, and you're still living as a second-class citizen. You're still living subjected to the rule of the majority. You're not living as an independent person. You're not living as someone who has control over their own destiny, because your homeland, because your own homeland, where you should have control, where you should be able to exert dominion, is actually under occupation by foreign interests. So understand and just digest that no matter what you do, no matter where you go, as long as you're in someone else's land, you're living in their dominion. Anything that you get here in the U.S., you're getting it because someone allowed you to have it. You're not getting it because you took it. You're getting it because you're being accommodated. And they're willing to accommodate some, but they're not willing to accommodate all. So these are just things to remember, particularly when we have brothers and sisters that are, so desperate. And I understand, like, I could never, understand the conditions you live in. But understand, when you're so desperate to get on a raft and go across the Mediterranean to, to another country, risking drowning, risking your children drowning. I mean, unfortunately, this happens all the time. There are videos of Africans who drown in the sea, and a lot of times the ships are passing right by them. They don't do anything. Before you risk that, just consider what you're going for, because you're not going for freedom. You're not going for self-determination. You're not risking drowning for necessarily having a better life. Because, once you get there, a lot of immigrants actually don't have a better life. A lot of them actually are subjected to racism. A lot of them are subjected to harsh conditions. A lot of them aren't even allowed to participate inside of the economies that have been so flashed around to them as being the ideal, the dream, the aspiration. Understand that. And then understand that, you're leaving your country and you're leaving it for your children, absolutely, but you're leaving still to be a second-class citizen in another country. And that is the reality. So this is just some more perspective. The fact that we have to understand racism, the systems that have controlled our people, it's international, and that images of us as being inferior, of being dangerous, this mentality is not something that's just in the United States. It's actually something that has gone overseas, something that's very prevalent in a lot of places. Keep that in mind before you vouch for Canada, before you vouch for Europe, before you travel to these places thinking that you're going to something better, that you're living somewhere better. Keep in mind that you're still living as a second-class citizen and you're still subjected to someone else's will over your life. So that's all I have for this. I'm sorry about the coughing. I'm still getting over a cold, but I hope you all have a good evening, and I'll see you on another video.